You've probably seen a Mach 5 cartridge, but I bet you've seen an Epyx FastLoad cartridge, an Action Replay, a Super Snapshot, a Final Cartridge. But have you seen one of these? My money says you have not seen one of these. In fact, I've never even heard of this better working turbo load and save. What the, from Spinnaker? Okay, this is crazy. And by the way, this thing, as almost everything else on this channel, has a little story behind it. You're not gonna wanna miss this. Stick around.
Let's go into the Monroe world.
All right, so you know if you watched my previous videos that I picked up these two cartridges at the Vintage Computer Festival. What the hell, I didn't have a Mach 5. I have almost every other fast loader cartridge, but I don't have one of these, so I got that. But when I saw this in the bin, this is something I wanted to bring to the channel. I wanted to talk about it. Now, again, you've probably never heard of it. This works on the C64 and the 128, which is a little bit unusual. And something that's interesting here is turbo load and save. Now, you may not realize it, but prior to 1986, the big cartridges, Epyx FastLoad, Mach 5, they didn't have a turbo save feature. This was, according to my research, and one of you will correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong, this was the first cartridge to offer a fast save routine. So people mistake this thing for like just a basic fast load cartridge clone, but it's not. Now you're probably saying to yourself, Shane, you showed this cartridge off briefly. There was no hole in here. What the hell happened? Yeah, therein lies an interesting story. So I plugged it in. I took it home, of course, and I plugged it in and I turned it on. And I'm waiting for some sort of splash screen, some sort of something. And that's what I got. Nothing. Well, wait a minute. How can that be? Every fast load cartridge, every utility cartridge puts something on the screen. So do I have a bad cartridge? Right? And so I'm doing all the standard stuff. I'm typing $ or string. I'm doing /*. I'm hitting the function keys, nothing. So I'm like, okay, come on, man. I just suffered through the whole Frogger situation. I found out that Blue Max and my Ford Apocalypse tapes are for the Atari. Come on, I need a break here. I need a win. So I didn't know, honestly, I didn't know if this even worked, right? For sale, as is, no refunds, right? So I thought to myself, okay, let's take a look at the edge connectors. Now that looks fine. Maybe something blew up inside that maybe I can fix. So I was taking a look, and there was an indent right here on the label. Seriously, and I'm going, okay, there's a screw in there, and I've got to screw the label up. If you look at the back, there's a little indent that shows a post where the screw would screw in. So it's like, fine. So I shoved a screwdriver in here, and guess what? There's no screw in there. That sucks. So I poked a hole through the label for no good reason. So I took a spludger, what do you say? How do you pronounce that? Spludger, and I snapped it open. And now, unfortunately, it barely stays shut, right? I could use almost no force and pop it right open. But I can, of course, take and maybe put a dab of glue on here and seal it back up when I'm done making these videos. So I thought you might like a look inside of here. Plus, this is what I did. I opened it up and I took a look. Is the capacitor blown? No. Is there any burn marks or scorch marks? Anything? Loose solder joints? No. No. This is nice and clean. It's just not working. Maybe there's a bad trace somewhere that you can't see with the human eye. But I was pretty discouraged. But after Frogger, I said, damn it, I better go get a manual and find out what the hell's going on. And so even having the manual, this cartridge is pretty damn interesting. So when I plug this guy in and I turned it on, it looks like nothing is happening, but nothing is further from the truth. In this mode, turning it on with the cartridge in place activates turbo load and turbo save. Right now, turbo load is active, as is turbo save. But there's no wedge commands. No quick and dirty commands, no /this, no $ that. All it is turbo. This is supposed to be for compatibility, right? So how do you think you get to the other mode? SYS something or another, right? Maybe some sort of special key command, something like that. Oddly enough, no, you simply power it up holding down the Commodore button. Thank God for the manual, right? So I'm gonna reach behind. This is an Ultimate 64, not a real 64. I've got the 3-button panel in the back. One of them is a reset button, so I'm gonna reset it, holding down the Commodore key. Here we go. Ready? Here comes mode 2. Wait, what? What the hell? Where's my turbo wedge installed? Better, right, blah, blah. No, there's nothing. So wait a minute. Reset. Hold down the Commodore key, reset. It's like we're doing an eye exam, right? What looks better, A or B? One more time. A or B? Okay, you probably see it now, right? I did it enough times. Basic version 4. So basic version 2 was largely built around the cassette drive. And the PET computers, Commodore actually gave the later PETs a version 4 of BASIC, which actually, believe it or not, has wedge commands. Unbelievable. So really what we got here is Spinnaker came up and said, well, we're going to give you a replacement kernel that gives you version 4 BASIC, which gives you back all of those wedge commands. Nothing special, nothing proprietary, something came right out of Commodore's coffers. That's pretty cool. So right now we are in turbo mode, this turbo time, and we also have the wedge, right? So we're gonna talk about the wedge in more detail, but first, before we get deep into the wedge, because we've got a lot going on, let's talk a little bit about turbo mode. So just like every other cartridge on the planet, this said 5 times speed up. 5 times speed up of loads. But, get this. Before 1986, according to my research, and believe me, one of you will correct me in the comments down below if I happen to be wrong, there was no utility cartridge that did 5 times save speeds. That makes this cartridge not a simple Epyx FastLoad clone, which it constantly gets lumped in with. If you look at Lemon 64, if you look at RR, you'll see that it's just another Epyx clone. And in fact, if you want to get copies of this ROM, you have to download the Epyx Mega Pack and get this cartridge along with it, because they just sweep it under the rug as another Epyx clone, which is really too bad, because this offers some really unique features. So load and save. Saving was a big deal. They put it in their marketing. It's in the manual. This was a big deal in 1986. Now, that doesn't mean that turbo save never existed. It did exist, but only in software, which was not very compatible. And you had to actually type in a thing from Compute Gazette magazine and run it into memory every time you wanted to use it per session. So it did exist. It was called Turbo Save, believe it or not. What a great name, right? And it was in Compute's Gazette. So it did exist, and there were some other software-based saves, but let's be honest, this was something cool. So let's check out the turbo stuff prior to checking out the wedge. So what I have here for you today, I've got a Space Games disc that has a bunch of Space Games on it. Duh. We're gonna mount the disc, and now I'm gonna stick with the standard Commodore commands for now. Load string, list. Okay, perfect. Trek 64's 91 blocks, and it's the first game on the disc. This makes it easy. Now, in the B drive, or drive 9, I'm going to mount this other, it's not empty anymore, but basically an empty disk for us to test the saves on. I should probably make sure that drive 9 is turned on. It is not. That would have made the demo rather nasty. Okay, so now if I do a load string comma 9, I swear to God, I'm only gonna do it that one time. It makes you guys crazy, but it cracks me up. There you go. So you see I've done some ickety-ackety ooks on there. So we're gonna prove it out, right? So let's go ahead and load in Trek 64, which remember is the first game on drive. I'll just do standard comma 8, because it's basic, right? So we can get away with this. Now listen, you can't probably hear it. Click. Yeah, it's fast loading, folks. And we're gonna have some times on the screen for you. I won't make you sit through the full, it's done. I'm not gonna make you sit through the full load, but I am gonna make you sit through that. So not bad, right? That's like, I think it was like 14 seconds, less than 15 seconds to load that big old game, right? And you can tell that it's here. Oh, there you go. I guess it looks like it did have a little bit of machine language action going on there. And we'll run it. And if you've never played this, this is my favorite Star Trek game on the Commodore 64. SOS is great, but I really like this one because it's like the old school Star Trek with, you know, you have X number of days, so many starships, and X number of Klingons, and you got to fly through the galaxy. It's cool. I love it. So here's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to save this game over to Drive 9. Here we go. I'm going to use regular commands. Nothing scary. Except for I'm worried that those stars and stuff are going to get in the way. So let's do Trek 4. Well, close enough. Right? Common 9. There we go. Perfect. It's saving. Now let's listen. 1. Click. Click. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's turbo, baby. It is definitely turbo. All right. So I'm going to reset it. Reset everything. I'm going to do a load string of drive 9. See how I resisted doing it? I was going to say it, but I didn't. All right, there you go. Ooh, that looks like it's short. Something went wrong there because 91 is the proper number. All right, so let's do this one more time. I'm going to load off of 8. I'm going to load in Trek again. And then I'm going to save it, comma 9, comma 1. I think there was a little difference in terms of the way that it's saved based on whether you used 8 or 1 or not 1. All right, so let's do this one more time. I want to make sure this is good. Trek 5, comma 9, comma 1. Here we go. So definitely the save is legit. So if you spend a lot of your time, now this was bundled with Word Pro, as I recall, which was Spinnaker Software's word processor, which means you're doing a lot of saving. So you're typing, save a draft, typing, save a draft, right? All right, so let's do a load string, comma 9. Make sure that we got everything going on. There we go. Trek 5 is 91 blocks. Now we could test it, and you're going to want me to. Now look at this. Now there's no colon here, right? So now you've got to do this bit, comma 8, comma 1. You got to space over. I'm showing you this because I'm going to show you some cool things about this cartridge. Oops. Guess what? I said drive 8. Drive 9. Here we go. So save's legit. Load is legit. It's obvious. The timing shows it up. And now again, how well does it work with commercial software? Done though, right? It all varies. All right, so let's take a look, make sure Star Trek runs, which it does. Life is good. Again, big fan. So load and save, turbo time, all works. All right, enough of that. So I'm just gonna reset the thing. All right, now remember, if you don't hold down the Commodore key, I'm in V2, basic V2, so I'm just in turbo mode. So let's do this one more time. Go to V4. Now we have the Wedge available. Now, the Wedge has tons of commands. We're not going to cover them all, but we are going to cover some of them. So I'm going to show you a list of all the Wedge commands first. I'm going to put that on the screen right now for you to see. And this is all the good stuff that it does. Now, not all of it is really pertinent to a day-to-day Commodore user's life. So we're only going to look at the ones that I think you would be interested in. So if you wanted to disable the Wedge, right, I'm going to show you that the Wedge works by using catalog. Catalog is a command to give you a directory listing. Sweet, right? Now, if for some reason you were here and you didn't have a reset switch, you didn't want to cycle your power, and you wanted to disable just the Wedge, but keep the load and save speed, right? You could use the word disable. Use the word disable or find somebody who knows how to type to do it for you. Disabled. Now that catalog shouldn't work anymore, right? Because the Wedge is disabled. Boom. But the load and save should continue to work. We're not going to demo it because we've done enough and I know that it works. Okay, so how do you get that back? Well, that is an SYS command, right? Let's see, 5.7. This is new to me. I've only done this like once before. Now do I get catalog back? There it is. Very nice. Now, maybe you want to disable the turbo. So if you hold down, if you do a run, stop, restore, which I know this has to be broken somewhere, supposedly turbo's turned off. But what about catalog? Catalog still works, but turbo is off. You want to bring it back? SYS 5.7. This is different. 2.9.7. Oh, it just does a reset. That's so goofy. Whatever. Now, this doesn't have a reset button. Can somebody tell me, it's got to be cost, right? Somebody tell me why you would ever make a utility cartridge that's made to go in your cartridge port, never come out, and not put a reset button on it. What's that about? But you can use the Wedge command reset. Oh, it didn't work. What happened? I'm in V2. Well, damn shame. Now I'm in V4, and if I hit reset, you get a nice reset. You get the idea. So reset is one of the Wedge commands. Not sure how useful it is, but there is that command as well. All right, you've already seen a little bit about catalog, right? So let me go ahead and reset back to V4. You've seen catalog, right? Catalog, supposedly this is faster, and it does seem to be faster, but you'd need something with a really long menu, all right, or a really long listing to get something out of that. Now, one thing that catalog does do, by the way, you can use directory too. One of the things you can do, which is kind of cool, is if you got a really long listing, you can hit space and it will pause the output until you hit space again. Now you'll notice that these colons are here. Oh, that's going to be some fun stuff. We got stuff to do with that. But as I mentioned before, all of these commands work around the concept of disk numbers, not drive numbers. D0 is always drive 8. D1 is always drive 9, right? There is no D2 and above. So this cartridge says 8 and 9, and you don't have anything else, which is kind of sucky, right? One other thing before we get too deep into it is, let's say I wanted to do catalog 9, right? So D1 for disk 1. That should show us that save. Okay, good. Now, you can use what I call Petsky shortcuts. In other words, you could use C-Shift-A for catalog. So that defaults to drive 0 or disk 0, drive 8. There you go. And you could also do this with D1. So that's pretty cool. And of course, almost every command uses the first letter and shift the second letter. There's a couple of outliers in there, but suffice to say that's good. Now, there is a command called collect, and you specify the disk, and if you don't specify any disk, it does both of them. This is what you would call a BAM cleanup, block allocation map cleanup. So let's say you load and save, delete, scratch, load, save, scratch, load, save, scratch. Eventually you get sort of a fragmented block allocation map. The collect command, if used alone, will do both disks. You have to specify a disk. I'm just going to do disk 1 because it should be quick. You don't know how far along it is. So you'd have to be watching the light to see if it's done or not. So my guess is it's walking all 35 tracks. Don't have any proof of this. It's walking all 35 tracks and making sure that the BAM is clean. So we're going to let this run for a minute. And as soon as the drive's done, we'll keep going. And we're done. So I'll put the timestamp on the screen so you know how long it took. Why would you do that, right? Well, it could actually free up space on your disk. Believe it or not, when you only had like 10 floppies to work with, you needed to collect. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That's not something I've seen a lot of coverage on. Now, let's go ahead. I'm just going to reset everything just to kind of get us clean. We still have drive 8 and 9, or D0 and D1. So let's talk about DLOAD and DSAVE. So again, let's do a catalog of disk 8. Now, normally speaking, you would go up here and you would type in, this is one of these shortcuts that all Commodore guys know, right? You go up here and you type load, and then you'd pan over here and do (8, 1, : right? But now there's a colon there for you, so that's kind of cool. But we have DLOAD and DSAVE now. So DLOAD, or D-Shift-L, I just screwed that up, will actually load the game, and that colon prevents it from picking up PRG as part of the file name. Pretty cool, right? So D-Shift-L, or DLOAD, and D-Shift-S, or DSAVE. Honestly, we've already done the load and save bit, so we can move on. Next is header. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a clean disk for this. So I'm going to make another disk. I'm going to call this let's see, how about I'm just going to call it blank. You're going to want to follow along here. So it's now called blank. So I've got a blank disk. I'm going to insert the blank disk into drive 9. So into B, now it's drive 9, okay? I don't want to use this command on, well, I could use it on drive 8, it wouldn't matter, but whatever. All right, so we have the next command is called header. And what header is a format. Now, there's 3 formats on here. This is kind of cool. This is something that's a little bit different, than you maybe have seen on other cartridges. So there's 3 ways of doing it. You could do the what they call the quick format, right? Maybe you're familiar with quick format on, say, the PC, where it doesn't really erase the disk, it just erases the file allocation tables. To do that, you just type header, and then you need to put a drive letter, right? In this case, drive 1, because we want to use drive 9, comma, let's call this super fast, super fast, super fast. How fast is it? It's done already. Oh, Shane, you have to prove that. You must prove. There it is, super fast, empty disk. It was so fast you couldn't even believe it. Now, every one of these cartridges has a fast format, not a quick format, but a fast format. So to do that, we do header, not with the shift. We do header. You need to specify the disk, and you specify an ID with I and then the 2 digits. This is very confusing. So I says this is going to be an ID, and you need 2 letters. So we'll call this quick format, so QF. So it's ID quick format, comma, we're just going to call it quick format. This is, did you hear it? It's bumping the heads. So that means you know it's going to do a full format, but it's quick. It's chewing through those tracks like crazy, chewing through them. All right, so that is the 15-second format. If you wanted to do the super duper, super slow, minute-and-a-half format, what you would do is you would simply put, instead of having the ID here, believe it or not, I sat through the entire manual just so that you guys can see this. What you do is you put a comma and then the ID, which would be slow format. Oh, come on. Slow format, right? That would initiate a full-blown minute-and-a-half regular Commodore slow-ass format. We're not going to do that because I want to be respectful of your time. Pretty cool though, right? Little something different. Now let's put back into drive 9. Let's put our to save back in drive 9. Let's do a quick reset. And let's do a DI for disk 1. So directory, D shift I, there you go. All right, so the next command up is a rename command. All right, that's pretty much cut and dry. Now, rename won't fit on here, so don't try to be clever. Rename, and so you specify the file to rename, Trek 5, to what you want to rename it to, Trek 64. And once again, we'll do a DI of drive 1. Oh, what happened? Oh, I didn't specify the drive, did I? But I didn't get an error either, which kind of sucks. Comma D1. Let's try this again. There you go. Now it's Trek 64. Perfect. So rename works. Now we know that these 83-byte ones are wrong. So guess what we want to do? Delete them. You'd think it would be delete, right? It's not. No, anyone know what it is? Show of hands? Yeah, you know what it is. Scratch Trek. Oh, D1. Now, even if they fail or succeed, you get nothing. It's fire and forget, which I find very interesting. Now, here's something, listen to this. We're used to delete just tagging the file as empty. This actually sounded like it went out and did some work. I find that interesting. And we could scratch the itch that's making me not type well. We also want to scratch Trek 4. Oh, wrong drive. But again, you got no error, right? Too bad. All right, so listen, it's not perfect. Okay, D shift I, D1, directory disk 1 or drive 9. Oh, it's still scratching. So look at this. It's queued the command up, but then it runs it. That's kind of cool, right? That's actually pretty neat that it doesn't like just try to fire and forget a second time. That's kind of cool. It's almost like a background task, a TSR. It's just running in the background, waiting for it to get done. So that's pretty cool. And of course, there's one more thing that we want to talk about. There is a built-in backup. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think this has ever worked. It doesn't work on the Ultimate, and it doesn't work on the OG bread bin. It doesn't work with a 1541. It doesn't work with a 1541-2. It doesn't work with a 1571. I think this has always been broken, and I'll prove it to you. So let's do this. So I've got 2 drives in here, right? I'm only going to use, now let's do both. All right, so I'm going to put this, I'm going to make sure that this is in drive 8, okay? And then I'm going to put my blank into drive 9. I should be able to back up D0 to drive 1. That's it. That's the command. Now, if I do it, the heads rattle, and they were rattling at the same time. You could almost hear a faint echo. But if this was a fast disk copier, I would be hearing tracks clicking off, right? But you don't. I've literally sat here for an hour waiting for this thing to finish. It never finishes. Now, there is something in the manual that says there are some very interesting limitations. I'm going to put this on the screen, let you read it, but it's very interesting. It doesn't like anything but soft modded drives, not hard modded drives, not with a dip switch, not with a trace cut. But it says if you went from 9 that's cut to 8, it's supposed to work. I don't know. It didn't work. Listen, I spared you an hour of nonsense trying to get this backup to work. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do one more thing for you. I'm going to do the backup of D0 to D0. So this should allow me to change disks out. So I'm going to go one more time, real quick. Mount disk in 8. Okay, cool. Backup 0 to 0. So here's what we do. 0 to 0, source. Okay, the source is already in there. Hit enter. Then it says put the target in. Okay, let's do that. Blank, right? Mount on, not B, A. Okay, perfect. Target, enter. Now, it hits the heads. It's clicking like it's formatting. Okay, maybe it's gonna work. So it sounds like it's formatting the disk, which I buy. That would make sense to format it. So when it's done, it should ask me for the source again. No? And it does. Okay, well, hey, maybe this is gonna work. Maybe. They mostly come out at night. Mostly. Oh, it's actually reading. Okay, you know what? Well, look at this. Maybe it works internally. I tried it with real drives. Forget about it. This is the first time I think I've done it with this. So I'm going to mount the blank again. Holy crap, I've never gotten this far. It really must not like this hardware. It must not like anything that has a switch. I don't remember how many times I have to swap for this, but it's going to be a lot. And we're done. I'll put a final timestamp on the screen for you. It looks like that it worked. Now, I know it didn't work from D0 to D1 internally on the Ultimate, so D0 to D0 works. I take everything back, all right? Well, let's make sure it actually worked. What's on this disk? All right, so let's go and see if that blank disk actually did the trick. Holy crap, it did. Look, there's all the games that were copied on the original Space Games disc. It looks like as long as you stay within D0 to D0, it works. Interesting cartridge, interesting solution, some neat things in here, some very useful things. Is it gonna replace your Epyx FastLoad? Probably not. Is it gonna replace your Action Replay? Probably not. This is a very interesting piece of history. The cartridge files can be used on your Commodore 64, so you can use either one of these. Now, one of them starts off defaulted in disabled, and the other one starts defaulted enabled. The answer to the question is, can I use just this one and then use the Commodore swap trick? It does work. Quick proof of concept here. Power off, take it out, power back on. Now I'll hit my reset. There you go. So now you have a V4. So yeah, you don't need the cartridge to play around with the interesting features that this has. So I'll have those in the description below. I'll have links to the manual for this guide down in the description below. You'll get everything in the description below. So there you have it. Listen, I'm having a great time with these. I've got piles of other crap that I need to do videos for. If you're liking this stuff, if you love it, leave a comment. That triggers the algorithm to get sent out to other people. You guys loved the cassette tape one. Love this one. Give it some love. Give it some hype. Share it with your friends. And just know that I've got so much more in the pipeline for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Like, subscribe, hype, hit the bell, all that good YouTube stuff. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.